Whole Story Audio presents an unabridged recording of The First Crusade by Peter Frankopan, narrated by Jonathan Keeble.
Hello, my name is Peter Frankopan, and I'm the author of The First Crusade, The Call from the East. Thank you for downloading my book, and thank you for buying it, or thank you whoever it is who bought it for you as a gift. My book is about the build-up to and the events of the First Crusade, the extraordinary military expedition in the middle of the 1090s that saw tens of thousands of men and a few women set off from Western Europe to march across to the Holy Land, where they reached Jerusalem and captured the Holy City on the 15th of July, 1099. Even when I was a boy, I was fascinated by the idea of the Crusades. This was an age of castles, of knights in armour, and of men fighting to defend their faith through an act of devotion. The long journey, the difficult conditions, and the stories of extraordinary bravery in this period were something I found intriguing. As I got older, my attention as a historian shifted to the Eastern Mediterranean, to the Middle East, Russia and the Black Sea, but the Crusades again loomed large. But as I got older, I realised that the story was much more complex than I thought. It wasn't just a story of the knights of Christendom fighting to defend their faith and taking on the Muslims of the Middle East. For one thing, there was a big part of the puzzle that was missing. The Byzantine Empire, or the eastern part of the Roman Empire that carried on after the fall of Rome, had flourished but was almost always left out of the story of the Crusades. That story is one that's been well told by wonderful historians, relying almost exclusively on Latin accounts, on histories written in monasteries, on the records of churches, on letters sent by the Pope, explaining why it was that the knights and their followers set off from Europe in the first place. But it turned out there's a vast archive of other materials that are not really often consulted. There are lots of texts written in the Byzantine world that have a direct interest in the Crusades, written in medieval Greek. But there are also many texts written in Arabic, in Armenian, in Syriac, and in Hebrew that tend not to be consulted if they're even discussed at all. On top of that, there are all sorts of different materials that can help build up the picture to the Crusades and of this period as a whole, such as those finds from archaeology, coins, for example, and in the case of the Byzantine Empire, tens of thousands of Byzantine lead seals that tell us who was in positions of command around this time. All of those materials have been left out of the story, and when you start to pull them together, the picture starts to look not just rather different, but tells us that something very unusual was happening in this time altogether.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?